Scott Phillips, welcome to Jerusalem Dateline.
It's great to be with you. Thanks so much.
Scott, there was recently a hostage-taking situation at the Beth Israel Synagogue there in Texas. Thankfully, the hostages were freed without incident. But tell us, what were your thoughts while that was going on and afterwards? What were you thinking about?
Well, that's a good question. My first thought was, wow, not again. This has been increasing in the United States over the past few years, these anti-Semitic attacks. And, interestingly enough, a few months beforehand, we were at an event at the local Jewish Federation here in Dallas. And, our Jewish friends there were saying, this is not something that, anti-Semitic attacks don't really, happen a whole lot in Dallas. Like, we don't have a lot to worry about historically. And so that was the first thing I thought of when I heard it was in Dallas, which is right in our backyard here, that, wow, it did happen here. And we can't take that for granted. And so, one of the things that we did is we just sprung into action like we do. This is a major part of what we do, is to raise awareness and activate our students against anti-Semitism. And so it was sobering because this can happen anywhere.
Right. And I understand that passages really lent a hand to some of those that were in need during this incident.
Yeah, so we put together, of course, just broad awareness to our community, our alumni community, about what was happening, asking them to pray for the hostage situation as it was happening for hours. And our advocacy team put together last minute, within a couple of hours, just a prayer vigil, just right down the street from the synagogue, because the incident was still happening. And so we gathered 20, 30 people just to pray and to come together from different denominations and just to pray while it was happening in unity. And thankfully, about an hour after our prayer vigil was over, the hostage situation was also over. So we were grateful to be able to be, I think, used by the Lord, to just be able to stand there and to stand on behalf in prayer for the community there.
We are seeing a rise of anti-Semitic incidents throughout the United States, throughout the world. What do you think is behind that?
I think there are probably several reasons. Number one, there's nothing new under the sun. This has been happening for a long time to the Jewish community, and a long time meaning thousands of years. And so, I think this just hasn't gone away. But number two, I think the thing that concerns me a lot, because anti-Semitism in the United States and other places comes from different parts of society, right? But one thing I am concerned about lately is with the rise of sort of this embracing of conspiracy theories, by a certain U.S., demographic segment, here in the U.S., along with conspiracy theories and the embracing of that comes anti-Semitism so many times. And so this, and the platform that has been able to happen, for these conspiracy theories, media, social media, Twitter, you name it. And so that concerns me that, along with this rise and these conspiracy theories comes these age-old anti-Semitic ways of thinking. So that's probably the most concerning thing right now, even though it does come from various sectors of society.
So what we're talking about is really a rise of anti-Semitism also within the church, the same church that believes in a Jewish Bible.
Isn't it wild? It's unfathomable what it happens, doesn't it? And has for 2,000 years.
Do you think this is generational? Is it a younger generational thing? Is it or is it across the board?
I do think it is. I think it's across the board. I think what we have to do is just ensure that the next generation, that we mitigate, that risk of it growing in the church, because it can grow. We've seen history has proven itself that it can grow. And so I think with the next generation of Christian leaders, what we have to do is, because many of them are neutral toward Israel or toward, anti-Semitism. Of course, a lot of them think it's bad, but they don't know much about it and haven't really been involved in it or been, exposed to it. And so I think, just helping the next generation of Christian leaders become aware and activate them to take action is going to be really important in the future.
So how exactly can Christians stand up against anti-Semitism and advocate on behalf of the Jewish community?
Well, I think there's three parts to that. Number one, it's very foundational, which is education. Like I said a minute ago, there's not a whole lot of awareness that it's happening or the history of it. So making ourselves as Christians aware of anti-Semitism, the history of it, both long time ago history and recent history, and just understanding and realizing that it happens. And so that's number one, education and awareness. Number two, I think, is relationships. I think that, a lot of our students that come on trips to Israel have not met Jewish people before until they go to Israel. And so I think building relationships that are built on trust, that are built on shared values, with our local Jewish communities, is really important to build those friendships. And then with that foundation in place, I think then, it is advocacy, is standing up, show up. When these things happen, show up for the Jewish community, let them know they're not alone, whether it be on campus, for our students, or whether it be, post-college, is to show up and just be there unconditionally and just say, we're with you. This is evil and we're going to stand against it. And just show up when these things happen.
Great advice. And how is Passages itself? I think you've taken things a step further. How is Passages helping to educate the next generation?
Absolutely. So one of the foundational things that we do is to take Christian college students on trips to Israel, which is the Jewish state, right? And to be exposed to the modern state of Israel, of course, both to connect with the spiritual roots of Christianity that exists there, and then to connect with the people who live there today, and to learn about the history of modern Israel. And then at the same time, hand in hand with that, is to learn about the history of the Jewish people and to learn about the history of anti-Semitism. So when these students come back from Israel, one of the components that we're creating right now is a documentary on specifically Christian anti-Semitism, so that these students can be aware, and then so that we can activate those who have really caught fire on this and have really caught a vision for this, and to activate them to stand up, to show up, and to build relationships.
That's great. Anything you'd like to add, Scott?
Well, I think, we're here for such a time as this. I mean, I think that's a well-known, biblical principle from the book of Esther. But Christians today, and I would urge and encourage the next generation of Christian leaders, that they are here for such a time as this. And, we have to stand up for our friends in the Jewish community. And that's what we're committed to at Passages.
Well, that's great, Scott. Keep up the good work, and the Lord bless you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Julie. It's good to be with you again.